What's going on, people of the internet? My name is Denny here, Denny Cigarette, and today I've got a different style of video today. We're going to be doing a medication review. I will get into that in just a bit, but first I'd like to cover two things. So first off, according to YouTube analytics, only 25% of you guys are subscribed. So if you could, please press the sub button. It not only helps you, but it helps me. The way it helps you is that it motivates me to upload more content, and yeah. Secondly, as always, there's drug test kits in the description. Fuck the war on drugs, it never worked. That's some bullshit, right? But anyways, today we're going to be doing a medication review on Atarax. Atarax, let's dive deeper into Atarax. Atarax, also known as Hydroxyzine, is a first-generation antihistamine. Kind of akin to Benadryl, if that makes sense, but not really. It has action on the dopamine receptors, the noradrenaline receptors, serotonin, and histamine receptors, all as an antagonist. An antagonist means that it blocks the receptor and stops the normal function of those neurotransmitters from binding to the receptor and activating it. Thus, a activator of the receptor would be called an agonist, and a blocker is called an antagonist. But there's also partial agonist, which means it only partially activates it. But yeah, so I'm going to be discussing the pros and cons, but for a little mumbo jumbo, I'm going to kind of break down what sites it antagonizes specifically and what that means. So number one, the 5-HT2A receptor. The serotonin, 5-HT2A receptor, for people who don't know. That site is a normal site used with different antipsychotics. They also are an antagonist of the 5-HT2A receptor, and this can definitely be beneficial as some serotonin receptors. I know the big idea is, if you boost serotonin, then you'll be happy again, or if you boost serotonin, your anxiety goes away. That's just not true. That is not true at all. And you'll find with a lot of these antidepressants that not only do they boost serotonin, but they also either block or they activate some other receptors besides just specifically increasing serotonin, because some serotonin receptors can actually increase anxiety if they're activated. Specifically, the 5-HT2A receptor has been noted to cause a lot of anxiety. I mean, if you look at things like LSD and psilocybin mushrooms, they all bind to this 5-HT2A receptor and can potentially cause bad trips. Which, in my opinion, looking at the IC50, which is a large document kind of displaying the action of a drug on each receptor, it does seem to have a large affinity for this receptor over the other ones we're going to cover, which tells me that the 5-HT2A receptor is definitely involved in its action on anxiety. Secondly, it also affects the D2 receptor, which correlates to dopamine 2. And by blocking dopamine, once again, everyone hears that, I need to boost my dopamine. That's gonna get me happy again. That's just not true. Once again, well, yes, some areas of the brain can benefit from an excess amount of dopamine. There's actually what we call the dopamine hypothesis, that dopamine can actually, too much dopamine in the brain can cause mental illness like schizophrenia and other psychotic disorders, right? So by antagonizing dopamine 2, you not only have a sedative effect, you have a sort of antipsychotic effect, just like with antagonizing the 5-HT2A receptor, which blocking dopamine, dopamine can also cause a lot of anxiety, right? Which is kind of seen with people who are on meth for multiple days and they get kind of, overly amped, right? And then finally, we have the noradrenaline receptor 1, aka the A1 receptor, and it also works as an antagonist here. Now, noradrenaline receptors are kind of odd because when you're antagonizing some of these receptors or activating them, you would think that if you activate these receptors, they would have like a big boost in your energy and this and that. but that's actually not true. If you look at things like clonidine, which agonize the A2A, adrenergic 2A receptor, they actually lower your blood pressure and can help people with ADHD and things like that focus. So basically, as an A1 adrenergic receptor antagonist, my best guess is it's most likely releasing a little bit more noradrenaline and other neurotransmitters into the body, as opposed to the other two where it's just blocking it. But yeah. And then finally, it has action as an H1 receptor antagonist, or histamine 1. Histamine is what your body releases during an allergic reaction. It's what causes the redness and swollenness around the skin. It's what causes the itchiness, and it also is involved in the brain and the central nervous system. And antagonizing it can cause sedation once again. So anyways, now that we got the mumbo jumbo out of the way, let's talk about the pros and cons of the medication. Now, for me, this is very subjective, by the way. Everyone's brain works differently. I could have drastically different results from you guys, and don't take this as the end-all, be-all of the medication, right? For some people, this works miracles. For some people, it barely works. Some people, it doesn't work at all. And there's a lot of gray area when it comes to meds, especially psychiatric meds, because everyone's brain works differently. Usually, everyone's body kind of works the same, but the brain can be very unique by each person. So, the pros of this med, number one, in my opinion, after being on it for over a year, it really can help with anxiety. And I say can because what I found doing research and what I found actually using it is that if I use it every day and I use it consistently, it does lose its anxiolytic properties, right? However, if I space it out, even one tablet a day is okay. But if I start taking what's recommended on the model, like 2 or 3 tablets each day as needed, then that's where it starts to lose its anxiolytic properties and I start to build a tolerance to it, right? And I think that's a pro, because you're not going to be taking the medication every day. And for some people, that can be a very bothersome thing, like if we look at SSRIs like Zoloft, Prozac, or SNRIs like Effexor and Cymbalta, those you have to take every day, and they come with a slew of sexual side effects and depersonalization and all this shit that no one really fucking wants, and this idea that just boosting serotonin is going to fix you, it's benign, it's fucking stupid. Just boosting a neurotransmitter doesn't mean shit. You could take like a plant that does the exact same thing and voila, somehow they're cured, when in reality a lot of these antidepressants just have a placebo effect, right? And a placebo effect can be beneficial to some people. It's a very powerful thing. But I don't think that for anxiety or depression that's a good idea for someone who's severely bad to give them that. The second pro, is really taken with a grain of salt. It does have a strong anxiolytic property, and you can take it as when you need it, and it works immediately. So let's say you're having a panic attack, let's say you have a lot of anxiety, or kind of mental masturbating, as I call it, or really like obsessing about something that's giving you a lot of anxiety, I found that you can take this and it works immediately. It's not like SSRIs, once again, which I have a vendetta against, where they take months to work. So that can be really beneficial for people with anxiety, and especially those who can't have benzodiazepines or Z drugs, so yeah. And now let's go into the cons. So once again, cons, especially for me, are super subjective. And once again, do not take these as fact. Everyone's brain works different. So for the cons, I would say that there's a lot of sedation. In fact, Recent studies have shown that a single 30 milligram dose of hydroxyzine occupies 67.6% of the H1 receptor, and that's a shit ton of the receptor. And this value did go up when more hydroxyzine was added. And this can cause a very heavy amount of sedation, along with binding to serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline receptors and antagonizing them. Well, besides the noradrenaline receptor, those can cause sedation too, because you don't have serotonin or dopamine keeping you awake. So I'd say that that's a big con. Secondly, I found that it really, I get tachycardia from it. I know this won't be for everyone, right? But I take it with propranolol, and the propranolol did take away the heart palpitations, or not palpitations, the tachycardia, which tachycardia is an increased heart rate. And it really took that away and calmed me down. And then the third con and final con that I have is that it doesn't really help with physical anxiety, if that makes sense. This is really a mental drug. Like, it won't take, if you're really anxious, you're having a panic attack, it's not going to stop that fast beating heart rate. It's not going to take away the sweating. It's not going to take away the shakiness. It is just for the brain to stop focusing on the thing that's causing them anxiety, right? And I wanted to mention too that at the end of the day, this isn't like Xanax, right? If you take a benzo or a Z drug, right? Think of it like morphine, and think of this like ibuprofen, right? There's a very big difference in how they work, and you're not going to get the same effect from them. It's like going from morphine to ibuprofen, you know what I mean? And that's something to keep in mind when you're taking this, is that it's not going to be as strong as some of the other anxiolytics out there. However, I still do believe that it has its potential, and I believe it does have its potential to help people. However, I personally have a prescription also for propranolol, which I'll be doing a review on next. And I believe that propranolol, alongside with the hydroxyzine, can help a lot more, because the propranolol slows down the heart rate. It takes away noradrenaline from working, right? So it stops all of that, the physical side effects of anxiety. And I found that mixing the two together, hydroxyzine for the mental stuff and the propranolol for the physical anxiety, really has done a number on my personal anxiety. And by the way, I'm not self-diagnosed. I've been diagnosed with GAD and SAD, generalized anxiety disorder and socialized anxiety disorder, for years. I also have panic disorder as well, which all these have been diagnosed multiple times through different psychiatrists. And yeah, so I didn't want you guys to think I just came out here just, like self-diagnosing myself and making a video about anxiety I don't have. But anyways, guys, I hope you did enjoy. This is a new form of content. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, smash sub, smash like, what's up. We're on the road to 100 subs. Oh, yeah. But, yeah, I hope y'all have a good one. All right, deuces.